Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this week's Learn in Your Lunchtime webinar on the Student Success Coach community. It's an absolute thrill to spend this hour with you in our lunch break every Friday and talk about just fantastic topics. Today we are talking about leadership, just such an important concept in society today, and important regardless of your chosen career or your studies or whatever job it is that you're aiming for or whatever success that you're trying to achieve in your life. Leadership, they say, often starts with yourself. So leadership applies to so many areas that we spend time on and that we are worried about potentially in terms of global politics, and right down to the macro and micro level in our societies and in our homes. We all, to some level, play a role of leadership. So we're going to tackle this important topic of leadership. Hey, Luistas, fantastic to have you with us. Luistas was a guest a couple of weeks back talking about the success mindset. So if you missed that, Luistas, maybe pop the link to your book and your course and the webinar in the chat if you can, and then you guys can click on that and see the fantastic conversation that we had with Luistas a couple of weeks ago. That was really, really outstanding. So I really do suggest that you go and have a look at that. And Luistas, feel free to put some information in the chat there about your success mindset book and course, etc. Okay, so today we are talking about leadership, and just a reminder that if you would like to get more resources from the Student Success Coach, the best place to start is going to be the Facebook group. So I'll put the link in the chat there. And I think Luistas has even joined us in there, and a lot of our guests do often join us there to continue providing the expertise and the insight that they do in these chats more directly to you. I'd also love it if you can subscribe to this YouTube channel where you are watching this webinar now, because then you'll get these recordings and you'll get these webinars, and we often post updates about courses and things that are happening there on YouTube. So those are two important things for you to have a look at and to get involved with. And please always do like and comment on any of the videos, and just give us some feedback in terms of whether we're hitting the mark on what it is that you're looking for and the value that you want to get out of all of this content. All right, and then just a reminder also that there's a mailing list. So there's lots of free resources. So when we launch courses, we often provide them for free. And if you're on that mailing list, you'll get them. So for example, this morning we launched digital marketing. So teaching you everything about digital marketing to grow your brand and reach more customers. Yesterday we launched a new course on project management. So digital marketing, whether you're going into that field or whether you're launching a side hustle, we all have to understand the exponentially growing online world, and digital marketing, which is taking off in comparison to traditional marketing channels. You need tools like email marketing, search engine optimization, keyword placement, all these things. We've spoken about them previously on these webinars, but we now have a comprehensive course that we put together for you. And then yesterday, as I said, project management. In some shape or form, you're all going to have to deal with limited resources, planning and budgeting, and those are project management. But if you're looking for an absolute end-to-end complete guide, we call it a complete guide to A+ project management, then pick up that course as well. And both of those still available for free. When you come into the Facebook group, you'll see the post there, and you can click on the links. And if I've got a chance, I'll put them into the chat as well this afternoon. Right, so we've got a nice big group joining us today, which is absolutely fantastic. So very good afternoon, Jan Koketso. Happy to have you with us. Good day to you as well. And then Ntumbe Gongo, good day, everyone. Fantastic to have you. Apologies, my pronunciation, but lovely to have you. Very, very warm welcome to you. All right, so what I am looking for is specific questions with regards to leadership. And then I'm going to step through the course that we've got available, and which we'll provide free access into this afternoon as well. And the course we put together really intended to cover a wide range of topics on leadership. And so what we did was we took every letter in leadership, starting from L all the way through the letters, and we then taught on each of those letters. And what I'm going to do now is use that structure as a way of teaching you, the high-level concepts from each section and lesson in the course. But the course then, when I give you access to it, you can enroll and go and get absolutely all the insights and detail from that as well. Hello, I am Legend. Fantastic to have you on board as well. And those of you that are just joining, we've got a fantastic big group today. So very, very obviously important topic for everybody. Let's have some questions, guys. Let's see if we can have some really challenging and insightful questions on the chat that I'll pick up and give you some guidance on. And just why would I teach about leadership? I've been in leadership roles for more than 25 years. From high school, I was head boy. I was always, looked at to lead, whether it was in groups or more formally appointed leadership roles. Whether I've been as a scout when I was hiking and leading, and other boys in mountains and treacherous areas and having to navigate all the way through my career. I've just found that leadership roles have always come to me. And whether it's leading and running a department of 150 people at a large bank, or leading, as I say, a few boys on a hike, I've always found an affinity for leading others around me. And that's not to say that you always have to be in those roles to exercise leadership. As I said at the beginning of this webinar, leadership often starts with self. So self-leadership is where you start. If you cannot lead yourself, you cannot lead other people. And what you'll get from the course and from this webinar is really just going to be an overview of all the key concepts with regards to leadership that we packaged for you in this course, using that sort of framework of LEADERSHIP. And that's really what I'm going to step through in the course shortly. So let's get that up on the screen for you. And then we will get into the discussion. So let's have a look at what we've got here. Right. So there we have Salil, my colleague, who also helped produce this course. So let's just make sure that you can see everything there. Just going to zoom in a little bit here. Okay. So on the right-hand side there, you can see how we structured the course. And so we started with L for leadership models, E for empathy, and then A for action, D for diversity, E for ethics, R for resilience, S for skills, storytelling, and self-leadership, as I mentioned, H for high-performance business leaders, and then I is for inspiring authors on leadership, and P is for people. And we profile a number of fantastic leaders that we're all well aware of. And I even walked around London when I was over there a couple of months ago. And for example, Churchill and Ghandi and other fantastic leaders, I was actually filming right next to the statue of that leader and talking a little bit about their life. You have different styles of different leaders, but for whatever reason, we've associated leadership with many of these types of people. Tabiso says, how do you become a good leader without being tyrannical or worse, a pushover? So two fantastic leaders, that we include in this course, and which I put on the thumbnail for this YouTube webinar, is Nelson Mandela and Ghandi. All right. Salil teaches about Ghandi, and I teach about Nelson Mandela. And I think we would all agree that neither of those fantastic leaders that we all have known in the world in the course of history they are not tyrannical. Ghandi was a very submissive and graceful, serving type of leader, but he managed to influence and inspire millions and millions of people. So Tabiso, the answer to your question would be to go and look at people like Ghandi and Mandela and see how they inspired people, and through that inspiration were good leaders without having to be tyrannical in the way that they worked. It's not to say that people who are tyrannical are not leaders, right? So that is a leadership model, and we'll start with models. That's why we put it in at the beginning of the course. You can have that authoritative style of leadership, and sometimes it can achieve the objectives that you're looking for. So, for example, if there's structure that's needed, for example, in the army, where they need people to follow orders, then you could say the leaders in the hierarchy of an army are tyrannical because they're authoritative and they will tell people what to do. And if you don't do what they tell you to do, you're punished. But the only way an army will have success is through that discipline and organization. So that authoritative style of leadership will work in some instances and it'll work for some people. But again, you must aspire to the leadership model that works well for you. It's certainly not a model that has worked well for me. And I think, to your question, you should become a good leader by aiming for the leadership model that suits you, that suits your character, it suits your personality. Okay. So what you will gain from this course is to look at the leadership models, and then as you learn about leadership models, you actually focus on the leadership model that you aspire for. And then you look for examples of that leadership model and follow in their footsteps and learn about that leadership model and then put those things into practice. I Am Legend says, why should someone want to be a leader? You don't have to be a leader. And it's not to say that everybody has to be a leader. And it's not to say that you always have to be leading. I mean, there's many times in my career when I felt that I wasn't called to be a leader, or I wasn't in a situation that required leadership. And there were people around me that, for whatever reason, because of the situation, because of their knowledge, played a stronger leadership role than me. So in that situation, I then felt I didn't need to lead because it wouldn't serve the greater good. It wouldn't be my best contribution at that point. But to answer your question, I think you would want to be a leader because it makes progress. And whether you're just leading yourself, leadership is about progress and about inspiration and about moving forward and improving your circumstances. So even if you're just leading yourself, if you're making progress, if you're finishing your assignments, if you're getting your degree, if you're doing well at work, if you're building your company, you're leading yourself on that individual journey as a leader. So I would say that whether it's yourself or other people, you would want to be a leader in order to achieve better outcomes than what you have at the moment. And those outcomes, different people might disagree on whether those are good or bad outcomes. And we talk about the war in Ukraine, for example, in the course. And when I was in London, I was standing outside the Houses of Parliament where Zelensky had just addressed the Houses of Parliament from a country that was under attack. Now, there you have two leaders with different objectives, Putin and Zelensky. And you can have your own opinions as to the right or wrong nature of each of those outcomes, but they are called into leadership positions because of those circumstances. And we speak about the leadership models that they use, and we speak about how different leaders respond to those circumstances in different ways, and then emulate the characteristics of the different leadership models. I'm an introvert, and people around me say I won't be able to become a leader, especially in the corporate environment. So I'd like advice on skills I need in order to be a good leader as an introvert. Okay, Princess, I believe that I'm introverted myself. I generally, in a social setting, will not be the person that's talking the most, making the most jokes. I'm more intellectual. I'm more quieter and thoughtful in my style of interaction with people. And yet through that, I have had leadership roles over the years that I've enjoyed, and that through which I've been able to inspire people. So Princess, I think you should not listen to people that say you won't be a leader because you're an introvert. You should rather have a different mindset, one that says, what kind of leader will I be based on how I am naturally with other people? And an introvert, as a person like me, is more likely to inspire people through your example, through building relationships, through having often, intellectual, insightful answers and approaches to problems, and to how to develop a journey and to inspire people to get there. An extroverted person is going to rely on a slightly different skill set and aspire to a slightly different model. And that will then be the best use of their extroverted nature as they become that type of leader. So the key message, I think, and some great questions just starting off this, as we go into the leadership models section, let's just have a look at that, is that the leadership models vary enough for you to look at them and say, based on what my style is and my approach to life and the people around me, what leadership model should I be aiming for? Okay, so if you look here, these are the models that we look at. So autocratic, authoritative, pace-setting, democratic, coaching, affiliative, and laissez-faire. So the autocratic, tyrannical, directive leader, we've spoken a little bit about that. Then authoritative, very similar to that. We've spoken about the army and how in that environment you need that structure. You need the authority of a hierarchy within which leadership is manifested. Pace setting is somebody, and you could talk about the extrovert as somebody that's on the stage. They're out in front. Elon Musk. A lot of the very expansive, visible, well-spoken marketing gurus and highly promoted leaders out there. Pace setting in a sense. Democratic leaders, the word democracy obviously associated with that, very keen to understand what the will of the people is, so they reflect then what the will of the group of people is, the team or the department or whoever it is that they're leading. Coaching, coming back to what we were chatting about, slightly more introverted people. I've done a lot of coaching in my life because I'm introverted. I often prefer to have those one-on-one conversations, and I feel I can add a lot more value in a bit more of a smaller, intimate setting where there's a little bit more focus on the content and the intellectual conversation that can happen in that coaching interaction. And that's then often the type of style that I would have espoused to over the years. And then affiliative, again, is a little bit more relationship building, a little bit more reliant on the trust that exists that they build within the team. And then laissez-faire is very much more a hands-off leadership style, very much more somebody that lets the team get on with it and really is there just to shepherd the team and get them involved. So hi, Salil. Are you there? How's it? Great to have you. And so just to welcome Salil into the webinar. Salil and I co-produced and co-taught this course. Salil, thanks for joining us this afternoon. And we've had some fantastic questions just getting us going in this context of leadership models. And it's exactly the reason that we start the course with leadership models, because people think that they can't be a leader based on who they are. If they're introverted or they're intellectual or they're outspoken, you can be a leader because there is such a wide range of models that you need to look at those models, look at yourself, and then aim for the leadership model that is best suited to your skills, your personality, your character, etc. So, Salil, I'll let you give a bit of an introduction and then possibly give your thoughts on leadership models. And then after leadership models, and really, as I've explained in this webinar, we'll work our way through all the different letters of the word leadership, maybe not covering all of them in the same amount of detail, but just to help you understand the structure of the course so that when you enroll and go into the course and take action after this webinar, you'll already have a bit of an introduction and you'll know where you can go into the course to get the most value for yourself. Salil, how's it going this afternoon with you?
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Peter. And this course was great because this course came about from our different perspectives, and I've primarily led smaller teams. So for my Amazon seller business, I have a team of 6. For my course creation business now, I had a team before, now I have a team of freelancers. So whenever whatever business I've done, I've had smaller teams because I run small businesses. And that's given me a different perspective where I have to follow this sort of pace setting model that we talk about in this course, where, I have to set the benchmark that this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do things, and then make the team motivated and follow through. Because in a small team, each person has to do multiple roles. Whereas in a larger corporation or a larger firm, you can have a smaller role or specific task. But in a smaller firm, there's an expectation in the smaller team that one person will do as many things as possible, or you expect that they'll take care of any additional task, because as a owner, as an entrepreneur, I don't want to hire a new person for every task that comes around. I expect the same team or same people to take on additional tasks rather than me taking on additional liability expense based on a new team member. And it's become pretty expensive to hire people as well, because the wages are going up, inflation's there. Then per person or per employee, you have to pay a lot of upfront fees, hiring costs, and all of that. So it's always best that the team takes up more responsibility. And for that, my leadership style has always been pace setting, where I show the team that I'm taking up so many tasks, and they get inspired and they get motivated to take up more tasks because they see me doing that. They see me doing multiple things. They see other team members doing more than they are, and that sort of motivates them. And then they follow the same pattern of doing multiple things while having a different role that they were hired for. So that's the ideology that this course started off, where we talked about different models, what models I prefer, the way I try to lead my teams, and it comes organically in certain aspects where your personality type, as Peter discussed, and how you are as a leader. But it also comes from another perspective where what is required in certain situations. So, for example, when I work with Peter, I don't have to do pace setting because he's already he's already setting the pace, and he has that different style of leadership. Whereas if I'm working with my freelancers, then I need to have a type of leadership that requires constant follow-ups. So it's more of an autocratic, where I tell them that this is what I need you to do. These are the guidelines. Follow this and do this work in this duration, right? So with each setting, each team, each environment, there's a different leadership style, and that's the beauty of this course, is that we cover all leadership styles, so you can fluidly figure out what leadership style is best for you in what situation, what circumstance, and that will help you just be an effective manager.
Thanks, Salil. Appreciate that. And I've just got up on screen now the workbook that you'll get with this course. So each of the individual lessons has these one-page worksheets, and you can download each individual one page if that's the lesson that you're most interested in and the reference that you'd like to keep after doing that lesson. Or you can get the entire workbook with all the individual worksheets that's available in the introduction of the course. So we really have packed this course with a whole lot of valuable information, which goes into all of the different elements of the framework that we will skip through in this webinar. And Tracy's joined us. Thanks, Tracy. Very kind of you. And I talk quite, emotionally in this course about my own journey with leadership. And when Salil suggested that we do a course like this, and he eventually convinced me to do it, just because it's been such an important part of my journey, I knew that it would require such an emotional investment from me, and became such a big project that both Salil and I worked on for a number of months, that I'm actually so proud of seeing how it's come out. And we've had such a successful launch of it so far in the last couple of weeks. And Salil and I are both so excited to now launch this with this community and give you access to this incredible material. So Tracy, to your point, yes, it's been a lot of hard work and fantastic once again partnering with Salil on this, but I'm absolutely thrilled that we've been able to get to this point. Okay, Salil, maybe let's jump into then the E of our model. And, this is all about empathy, and this is all about relating to other people, with that heart that recognizes the humanity of other people, recognizes that ultimately leadership is about understanding where people are coming from, being open to different perspectives, practicing active listening, demonstrating compassion, remaining optimistic. And I think that's something that I've been able to do in my life on my leadership journey. And that optimism and that humanity and that empathy, even though I'm introverted, you can display those qualities and those characteristics and inspire people and make sure that they, achieve this sort of leadership journey that you're aiming for. Salil, your thoughts on empathy?
Yeah, just almost an hour ago, one of the persons who helped us clean the office and is taking care of us, we always saw that the person was in a rush. So what we realized is that woman actually had kids and she had to pick up her kids from school. And she was always in a rush. And it's just like something we never think about, right? But as an empathetic leader, someone who cares. Now we ask her to come in the evening, early in the morning, whenever she can, when time is convenient for her. And that has brought her happiness in her household. She can take care of the kids when it's important and then take care of the work as well. So empathy and leading with empathy is so important, because as soon as you showcase care for anyone, they'll always be grateful for you and they'll always work in the firm. How many times we've worked in a company, in a work environment, we've not felt that compassion, and we've just felt that nature of just a managerial system where everyone's cold, and then we just quit instantly, right? We can't be in a system where we aren't cared for. There's no compassion, and that's what we've discussed, right? So the 17 lectures lead by demonstrating compassion, and in this Peter talks about how to demonstrate compassion is by taking a moment, showing gratitude, be the bridge that links your employees, right? So all of these things are ways to show. So we do feel empathy as a compassion leader, but sometimes we're not able to showcase. Maybe we're hesitant to come showcase that, or maybe we're hesitant to bring up that communication, or somehow we're not able to bridge that gap. So these tricks will actually help you sort of bridge that gap. Take a smaller moment, take a smaller incident, small time, smaller period, and then you slowly build that being a compassionate leader.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Salil. And just finishing off this section on empathy, and as I mentioned, optimism is about this, belief that there'll be a positive result, and to continually hold that positive result in your mind as you lead people and show them the picture of that positive, better future, like you can see on the captions on the screen at the moment. And again, when we talk about the great leaders at the end, many of them established their leadership credentials in tough times, in war, in situations that were negative and that were harmful to people, and in which it was difficult to show optimism. So empathy for fellow humans is about showing them that things can be better and that you can work towards a better outcome. And something that I've always said in my webinars and always said in all my courses and content, and in this course as well, is that if you take action, you improve your chances of reaching that optimistic outcome. But leadership is, as like Salil was saying, creating that bridge from where you are to that optimistic end goal. But people need to visualize something. People need to be able to picture something in their minds. And many students that we have in the Student Success Coach community, will visualize getting their degree. And in our Facebook community, we often have people showing pictures in their graduation gowns or showing their degree certificate. And that visualization is optimism that has resulted in the outcome. So the optimism of seeing other people achieve that, and the bridge and the action and the steps to take that you need to get to that outcome is what leadership is all about in terms of empathy and that section of the course. All right, then one of my favorite areas of the course, but I'll let Salil talk about action, which is the A.
This is actually my favorite section of the course too, because that's just the way I like to lead. That's just the way I find it. So action-centric leadership here that we talk about is just like getting things done, getting that action done. And that's what I've learned with Peter's style of leadership, my style of leadership, is that we just keep getting things done. And what happens is action leads to more action, like almost a chain reaction, right? And that's what we try to achieve. And that's where, it's about team, task, and individual, and then how they overlap and how they interact and how you have to balance the task, but then you have to take care that the team is not lagging behind, the team is able to cope up, and team is being part of the task. But then the individual's aspirations should not be compromised. So that's how we discuss that. In order to make sure your action-centric leadership is actually going through, you have to take care of the components of team, task, and the individual.
I love that, Salil. Thank you so much. And we've got that action-centered leadership model up on the screen there, which is, what we teach from in that particular lesson. And it's an established model, but we teach you the application from a task, team, and individual perspective. And when you think about driving action and taking those steps towards that better outcome that you seek, you've got to always think in those three areas. What is the task that needs to be accomplished as a result of the action? What is the team action and outcome that you're looking for? And then whether it's yourself as the individual or any individual member of the people around you that you might be leading or influencing, action is going to be related to all three of those. And the most optimal drive and encouragement and inspiration that you can take for your team is one that balances all three of those. So in the middle there, where task, team, and individual are all balanced in terms of the outcomes and the steps and the plan that you try and put in place as a leader. And sometimes, leaders tend to focus on only one of these three areas. So they're very task focused, want to get the job done, and they forget, but there's an individual there, and that individual's got certain views on life and emotional other characteristics, and they're forgotten, or the team doesn't feel part of the journey. And if you can bring those three together, that becomes very powerful. So I've got a great question up there on the screen now, Lawazi. And my simple answer to you, what makes a great leader, is if you do this course and you put it into action, and you follow the steps and you download the workbook, I believe, that everything that we put into this course is what makes a great leader. And really, when Salil came to me and said, Pete, let's make a masterclass on leadership. Let's answer that big question of what it takes to be a great leader. This course is the answer to that question. So the reason that we've structured it through all the letters is that it gives you that holistic framework of everything that you need to know about leadership. There is a lot of detail within each of these, but this gives you the overall framework and the masterclass mindset around leadership. And then, as I explained at the beginning, you might want to go into a specific area. You might want to develop more time on certain areas of your leadership style. And that's your journey. That's your application of what you've learned about in this course. But the course will give you that big picture, that overall framework or overall masterclass on leadership that Lawazi, I believe, passionately and emotionally will help you become a great leader. And I felt so strongly about this even when I was in the UK and I had COVID and I was sick. I got up, I walked around London, and I made lessons. So the lessons that you see in this course of me standing by the statues and teaching you about Churchill and Zelensky and Ghandi and John F. Kennedy, I had COVID in those lessons, but I felt so strongly that when I was there and I had the opportunity to teach from those statues, I wouldn't have the opportunity again quickly. So that was the degree of passion and emotion and my empathy that I had for this topic of leadership, and the action, the action that I took to convert that into something that you guys can all then benefit from. Okay, Salil, let's go into diversity, a very important topic for leadership. Your thoughts on diversity and leadership?
Yeah, and just the most amazing part is I'm in New Delhi, India. I'm working with Peter, who's in South Africa. We have people visiting and seeing our courses from all over the world. Today morning, if I just check my top 10 people, students, one from Kuwait, one was from the United States, one was from the UK. So we get students from all over the world. We work with people from all over the world. So diversity is just inevitable, right? Like in our teams now, you will have people from different backgrounds, different cultures. And that's what we've tried to do in this course, is to help you, one, understand that diversity is good. Diversity is good because it brings more people, brings more cultures, brings people with different perspectives. And then how to make the best use of diversity in how to use the perspectives of different individuals. And then the best is how to really maximize and understand diversity. So in this example that we've talked about, I've talked about understanding the local culture in order to benefit from diversity. So in Procter & Gamble, their headquarters, the Asia Pacific headquarters in Kobe, Japan. And when there was an earthquake, people were more respectful towards each other. But there were American expats who were not really considered part of local culture. And that's why they were not able to fit in. And they didn't have the culture of respect and all of that. So you can hear the entire story, the entire incident in this. I think it's around 12, 15-minute lecture. And then I also talk about incidents in India and workplace in India and how understanding the Indian local culture is very important. So no matter where you are, no matter which country, which office, and you will be in different circumstances where your company will ask you to go there or train in multinational companies. So you have to be very careful about the local culture. You have to embrace the diversity, and you have to make an active effort. You have to make that effort and saying, yes, I want to learn about local. Can you tell me how the local culture works? Can you tell me what do you guys think? How do you guys work? What is the best way that I can work with you or we can achieve those results? So because you're in a different culture, working with different people, you have to ask and take input from them, and that will help you boost the connection and the discussion between the two.
Wonderful. Thank you, Salil. Appreciate that. And I think, you can see there some of the other lessons that we teach on diversity. And from my perspective, I've always been able to get better results as a leader when I've had a wider range of thinking, a wider range of backgrounds, a wider range of perspectives. When you are narrow-minded and you think that only one type of person or one color of person or one type of language or place that a person lives in, that's narrow-mindedness. So whenever I've embraced, a diversity of thinking and a diversity of solutions and a diversity of approaching problems, as a leader, you need to bring those together. But the first job is to be inclusive in your mindset so that you're opening the team up to have that benefit of diversity in your team, and then as a leader to inspire the team and get those outcomes from it. So that is then action, diversity, and ethics, right? So let's get into ethics, Salil.
Yeah. The best thing we can talk about ethics is how we talked about failure of ethics at first. And then we discussed about, the importance of ethics, what is ethical conduct, and, what is ethical conduct, what are examples of ethical leadership, how to improve your ethical leadership skills. But then we also give the cautionary tales of what happens when ethics falls off. So we talk about the Enron scandal, we talk about the Satyam scandal, and we talk about how even just a small lapse in ethics can lead to a cascading effect where the entire team or the leadership starts having a lack of ethics. So ethics are very important to keep any company on the straight and narrow, on the right path, so that they follow that ethical perspective, ethical path. They do good for the community, and the community also does good back, right? So if you give to the community, if you are ethical, if you are giving to your employees, if you're working the right way, you will get back. So that's what we talk about in this course, and ethics are very important. As a leader, this is the most critical thing you can do as a leader, is set that example of ethics, because ethics start with you, right? It's that's the starting point. If you are following, or whatever rules you're following, whatever principles you're following, whatever code of conduct you're following, that's what the team will do. So that's where it starts from you. You have to take a lead when it comes to ethics, and that's when leadership ethics is very critical, because it sets the tone for the entire team.
Salil, couldn't agree with you more. And we're going to take a couple of questions now, and then we'll also be able to provide an amazing opportunity for you to get access into the course for our best possible price. Despite all the hard work that we put into this and the fantastic launch that we've had of this course already, we are going to give you an incredible discount on all this value so that you can learn these leadership practices and put them into practice in your own life. So a couple of questions here before I touch on the lesson that you can see up on the screen there. Tabiso says, the Florentine philosopher posed the question, is it better to be feared or loved? What is your answer to the question? For me and my leadership style that works best for me, I prefer to be loved. That's me, right? And that is an authentic response to the world's need for leadership with my skills, right? But somebody else might say, well, I prefer to be feared. And they will have much more of an autocratic or authoritative style. So an army general that needs to command thousands of troops into battle, where many of those men are possibly going to die, has to be feared. Otherwise, more people are going to die. So, fear or love is going to be dependent on the leadership style that you want to adopt. And I would say, again, back to Mandela and Ghandi, for example, they definitely felt they wanted to be loved, and they inspired through love. And Ghandi espoused those values of love and humanity and peace, which we teach on in the course. And then Jennifer, very important question, talks about this idea of whether you born or created as a leader. And we don't believe that you have to be born a leader. I think that's a misnomer. And I think it's only because of the very visible leaders that we've seen that use their natural talents of being an extrovert and being well-spoken and highly visible, that you see them. There are thousands of leaders in the world today that have a monumental impact on our world and environment that you just don't see. And many of them have learned leadership skills and then put them into practice. So we firmly believe that you can learn leadership skills. The mistake people make is to associate the highly visible leaders who have natural born talents relevant for that leadership style and think that you have to be born that way in order to lead. And even John F. Kennedy, that I teach from in the course, and I read the biography of him, he had huge issues of self-doubt He was not a natural extrovert. This John F. Kennedy that you see in the speeches and as the president, he had a quiet demeanor, an internal sense of anxiety. Even Churchill had manic depression. If you read his book as well, and from which I teach in the course, he was a leader for the time that it was needed, and he felt drawn into that, and he was able to do what he did because he led from a position of authenticity. He never tried to be somebody that he wasn't. So I think both are true in a sense. But you might be born a certain leadership style. You can always learn leadership and learn a style of leadership that is suitable to you and your character and the environment in which you need to lead. Jan Koketso talks about the balance between ethic and empathy. People might take advantage of empathy 100%, okay? And that's empathy and a coaching style of leadership is often seen as a weak style of leadership, right? So you have to be able to mitigate for that, and you have to have those boundaries, and ethics often comes into that as well. And if you go into this lesson, the smartest guys in the room, which was the catastrophic failure of Enron not so long ago, incredibly bright, autocratic, extroverted people running one of the world's biggest organizations, but an absolute ethical and moral failure of governance and discipline and integrity, and the resulting breakdown of the company and the loss of trust in large organizations is a lot of what I go into in that lesson that you can see up there on the screen. Okay, let's move on then to resilience. So Salil, I'll put a couple of your lessons up on the screen. You want to touch on resilience, and then I'm going to put a link to the course in the chat for you all to take action and get benefit from these lessons.
Yeah, so when it comes to resilient leadership, we talk a lot about it, primarily because resilient leadership is all about, how you as a leader, how strong you are and how you are able to motivate, right? So we talk about a lot of steps, such as, sleep well, eat well, exercise well, and that all builds up your strength as a resilient leader. Then you have to be aware of what triggers you, what motivates you, what pushes you, what disappoints you. So all of that, it's all about knowing yourself first, knowing yourself inside and out, and then understanding the situation, the circumstance, the team member. So it's about, change your perspective about problems. So once you understood yourself and you think from your perspective, then you have to go in and understand what the other person is saying, what the other person's perspective is, what their motivations are. So you have to change and put yourself in those people's shoes. You have to put yourself in their problems, right? And you have to be present for distressing emotions. The leader's resilient leadership strength really comes across in difficult times, in distressing situations. So a small incident is, recently in a company, the entire team was yelled at by the senior manager. And when the team went separately, the manager ran away, and not run away, but like he went home. But instead, the manager should have been there saying, yes, whatever the senior manager said is true and it applies to me, and we all go through it, we'll all work together, and I stand with you, right? So at each level of the hierarchy, everyone has to be there for the tough times, and that's where the resilient leadership comes in, where you stand during the tough times, you're there when the things are difficult, and that really makes a difference between just a regular leader or just anyone who's in the management position and a true resilient leader. And that's, the most important part of it. It's also about, vocally adopt a test and learn mindset. So you have to say that, we'll figure it out, we'll do it, we'll test, we'll find a way, and then once you do that, once you have that confidence, that intelligence, emotional intelligence automatically develops, where what situations require your resilient leadership, what situations require you to take a stand, to be there for your team, to make a stand for your team, and just that will show confidence to your team, that will build confidence within your team and portray you as a resilient leader. So I think there are around 7-8 lectures of resilient leadership strategies, around 20 minutes of that. So all these strategies, just try applying one strategy at a time. Just go in for the day, try to do something, try to apply one strategy, and then slowly you build that resilience, right? It's like the thing about 21 days makes a habit. So one small activity, one small practice will build that resilient leadership. As you can see, exercise, for example. So you do exercise, you do meditation, you do that 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. Over time, and it becomes a habit. And when you do exercise, when you do meditate, you're calmer, you're more relaxed in difficult situations. So all of this adds up, right? There are smaller things, smaller strategies where we discuss, and they'll all add up to make you a resilient leader towards the top of resilient leadership.
Yeah, thanks, Adil. And this lesson now on resilient leadership in the fourth industrial revolution sort of talks about the forces changing the world, exponential companies and technologies that are changing the way we live and work. And then how do you lead through that? How do you understand and develop strategies and principles in that very different context, which was different for Ghandi, different for Mandela? The world that they lived in was very different. The world that we live in is volatile, it's uncertain, it's changing, it's all those things that we hear of every day. And so this fourth industrial world that we live in, something that I spend a lot of time on in my career at the bank around digital transformation, which gives me access, to that insights and to that understanding of how it's changing the business landscape and how it's changing the way we go to market with products and services and how customers are adopting and using technologies. Leadership through all of that is becoming absolutely critical.
And as Peter, as we had that question earlier about being loved or feared, in the fourth revolution, it's turning more towards being loved. I mean, we're not in the times of monarchy where you have to be feared and, the king can only rule through fear. Now it's more about being loved because it's very important in the fourth revolution that you are the loved manager. And that will get you a bigger team, then bring more team members to your team, bright members, talented members, because the word of mouth will spread that this leader is great, this leader has practiced resilient leadership, or all those great qualities that we talk about. And it'll all spread through word of mouth, and that reputation builds through love more often nowadays than it builds through fear.
Yeah, and I think, Salil, just, what we've got up on the screen at the moment is the fantastic case study that you've done on Pringles. And how, and just moving on to the S, in the framework that we teach in the course, storytelling is such an important part of leadership. And, you teach from that fantastic case study of Pringles. And there are a number of other stories that we talk about in the section of the Leadership Masterclass. And I think just such a powerful technique to develop in leadership. We also spoke about self-leadership. So self-leadership, very important, and combined with those resilient practices of exercise and sleeping well and taking a breath and ensuring your mental and physical health is good. These are all things then that you start to combine, and the compound benefit that you get in your role as a leader is really going to start paying dividends for you in your life and at work. And I think, Salil, these lessons are very high quality. We have lots of visual material that we teach from, lots of fantastic worksheets. Somebody has already commented, I think, to say that, it's like watching Netflix, it's like a movie. You go through these lessons and you're entertained almost. And you learn about leadership as you're enjoying this experience of going through, this incredibly well-produced and well-packaged course.
Yeah, and that's what we started out with. Like when Peter and I were discussing about the topic of ethics, we said, whenever we learn about ethics, it's one of the most difficult things to teach and make it entertaining. And because, ethics are usually considered boring topics or a boring subject by people. And so what we really did was we brought in examples of the Enron scandal, and we brought in other scandals and scams, and what happens when there's ethical leadership. So we try to bring in as many examples, real life examples, our own personal experiences of failures in ethics. So all the things that we brought in, including the visuals, was just to make it more practical, make it more relevant. And when you're following along with the workbook, and I always recommend this to anyone who's bought the course, that you print the workbook out or you have it open right alongside you while you're doing this course, because it has space to write down and make notes. So once you're following along with the workbook, with the visuals, with the graphics, it'll make things a lot more easier for you.
Yeah, fantastic. And then, Salil, just, this point of ego, self-leadership, and that's certainly something that tripped up the leaders at Enron, and making sure that, and it's again back to that action-orientated model of individual. You as an individual mustn't get too much focus. You've got to balance with the task and the team. And if you as the individual are the focus of your leadership efforts, that's ego-centered leadership, right? It's not a bad thing, because a certain degree of ego is necessary for inspiration. And you could look at successful business leaders, and a lot of them do have very strong egos, but you've got to be able to manage your ego. You've got to have that emotional intelligence that understands when it's useful and when it's actually going to be harmful to the people around you. So just then jumping on to a couple of these high-performing business leaders, a course on leadership certainly wouldn't be complete without touching on some of these. And one that's obviously close to my heart is Elon Musk. Love him or hate him. Obviously, he's been very successful, built up incredible wealth, and changed all our lives in some way. And I teach about his life and talk about him as a South African-born, high-performing business leader. And Salil, any of these that you want to touch on?
Yeah, no, even for Elon Musk, if you weren't an exceptional leader, how do you convince the entire world that you'll make rockets that will land themselves and make reusable rockets? And now when he says, I'll take humanity to Mars, no one mocks him, no one jokes about it. Everyone really believes that he will take humanity to Mars. Truly, I believe in our lifetime, if we're wealthy enough, we'll have a chance to go to Mars. So, I mean, that's true leadership, right? That's inspirational leadership, and that's what he's done. And so that's why looking at these leaders is great in these lessons, is that we can really get inspired from leaders who actually done it, who made us believe into something, right? Steve Jobs made us believe in products, and now the world copies their products, and Apple has the highest cash reserve in the world. So they made so much money because we believe in what they've done. So we believe in rockets and going to Mars. We believe in Apple devices that work for years and they're high quality, and we believe in so we believe in everything that they've done. We believe in Walt Disney's Disneyland. It's his vision. He even could not pledge his Disney shares to make Disneyland. So his shareholders denied his request to make Disneyland, and he had no money to set up his vision and set up his dream. But still, because he had that vision, he had that dream, he made it come true. And now everyone, it's our dream to go to Disneyland and take our kids and go with our family. So whatever they've done, whatever these leaders have done, it's so inspirational that they had that vision and now the world can see it. And that's the true leadership. And that's why thinking about them, reading about them, learning about them is it's inspirational.
Yeah. And we link things in the course as well. So for example, we teach about storytelling, and then we showcase storytelling in Walt Disney, like Salil was telling about. And the brand of Walt Disney is built on stories, right? I mean, Walt Disney's characters that he gave life to and that you can read about in his books and these movies and go and visit at Disneyland are all about stories. And stories is the Walt Disney brand. But Walt Disney himself was a passionate storyteller. That was one of the characteristics of his fantastic leadership. So what I'm trying to say is that we teach you the principles and then we bring it to life in the examples and the great people, as well as the authors that we profile. So we've got a lot of great books that you can go and read, and I think that people have mentioned on the chat here. So we talk about, for example, Brené Brown, Dare to Lead, fantastic. No Bullshit Leadership by Chris Hurst. And then these books, by Stanley McChrystal, who was in the Navy SEALs, and his leadership style was born out of wartime. Really just very insightful quotes and principles, coming from these leaders, which you could read about here. And a fantastic book that I read this year was No Rules by Erin Mayer and Reed Hastings, who is the CEO of Netflix, and just an absolutely exponential growth in a company, and how he, as the leader of that company, was able to develop a culture that is very much anti-corporate and doesn't have rules in many instances. So they don't have vacation rules, they don't have expense rules. There's a lot of trust-based leadership and empowering leadership at Netflix, and yet they became so successful. So back to the question of, not everybody's going to love you. So if you aspire to be loved, how can you still be successful? Well, you have to make sure that there are enough people that love you and your style of leadership, that gives you enough success, and live with the fact that there are always going to be some people that aren't going to love you, are not going to love your leadership style. And you have to be at peace with that. And something that I've, had to work through in my own life. Just to finish off with, Salil, we've got these fantastic lessons at the end here, which I promised I would talk about. So you can see here me at Nelson's column in London, or me here at Winston Churchill outside of Parliament. And what was so fantastic about this lesson was that I was standing literally 100 meters from Parliament, where Zelensky had stood up and addressed the Parliament of the UK and quoted Winston Churchill, and Winston Churchill, as you should well know, said in the Second World War, we will never give in, we will never surrender, we will fight on the landing grounds, we'll fight on the beaches, we'll never surrender. And Zelensky quoted Churchill. In 2022, because of the war in Ukraine, and I was standing in London next to Churchill's statue, 100 meters away from where Zelensky had quoted this great leader, in a war in 2022, and the leadership lessons and the insight and the inspiration that you can get from understanding these models and these ideas and quotes that great leaders have used, both back in the Second World War and in 2022, in a country under attack, which is Ukraine, being led by Zelensky, I think will just be such an entertaining and exciting opportunity for you to go through on your journey of learning about leadership. Okay, Salil, which was your favorite leader? This is John F. Kennedy. Any thoughts on the American president?
Yeah, no, I mean, all the leaders that we talked about were amazing. And, while we were doing the research for them, so we always knew about these leaders, but researching about them, getting to know their life, that's what really, brought that inspiration. So whenever you hear these stories, whenever you hear about them, it's absolutely motivation. And Gandhi, and, so my entire childhood, we've been brought with books about Gandhi, stories about Gandhi. There's a Gandhi Museum right very close to my house as well. So being close to these people, that's what the motivation comes from. That's where, when I was reading about Gandhi, I thought that this person led millions of people. The least I can do is lead my 5-7 people team, right? So when you think about the scale of how these people brought millions to one cause, why can't we bring a few people to one specific cause? And that's where I realized it's because the cause is not true. So recently, for my editing for this course, me and my editor, we decided that we're going to next time, we're going to aim for some editing awards. Why shouldn't we be recognized for our course quality or editing awards? And because now we have that goal that we want to be recognized for our quality of editing, for quality of courses, for quality of production, is now we have a common goal, right? Before this, it was all about making a course, but now it's about making a great course, and we have that goal, and that's what inspiring my team. That, let's make a great course. Let's make something that, truly will benefit our students, empower them, and actually help them develop skills of leadership.
Yeah. And Salil, I'm just stepping through your introduction to the course here. And just to wrap up this afternoon, reminder that as you sort of explain in the introduction to the course, we really take you through every letter of the word leadership itself. And that gives you a sense of just how comprehensive and complete and high quality this masterclass is. And we've been able to provide you with discounted access. It's the last few spots that we're able to provide as part of our launch. And so, Salil, back to you just to encourage people to enroll today, to sign up for the course, to get the full benefit of all the great content and lessons and insights and material that we packed into this leadership masterclass. And then from yourself to say goodbye, Salil.
Yeah. So there are two things that we worked on. One was the course quality. And, Peter's been a course creator for, I think, 5 years now. And I've been doing it for 2 years now. So we combined our 7 years of just how to create the best, most interactive, most engaging course of a topic that's usually not as engaging, right? So we've created a course that, as Peter said, it'll almost be like a Netflix series with workbooks, with graphics, with visuals, with experiences, with examples, with case studies. So we've created a great course that will be great for you to learn. And then the concept aspect of it, we've covered, my experiences of running small teams and freelancers, and Peter's experiences of being in such a large corporation, one of the biggest corporations in the country. And we've tried to combine those experiences in a great way of creating a course which is visually appealing, easy to learn, easy to grasp, easy to apply to your life. And that combination, I think, will really, give you the maximum value. And even if you don't, when you take the course, you don't go through all 10 hours of it, just go through the first 5 minutes, then go through another 5 minutes, 5 minutes at a time, one lesson at a time, and trying to put those one lessons at a time into your own life, into your own experiences. That will really boost your experience with this course.
Super. Thank you, Salil. And Luistas, thank you. Already signed up and getting the benefit from this course. Appreciate that. And good luck to everybody. And as Salil has said, even if you put into practice one or two of these principles and lessons that you take away from the course, you're going to see some benefit in your life. And once you've enrolled in the course, you'll always get access to it, and we'll continually be updating it and adding lessons to it. And it's like that high quality series that you just always want to go back to and be entertained by and learn from and continue to put into practice. And I've got no doubt that, in the coming years, as you all put these leadership practices into your life, you're going to achieve much more success year by year, day by day, action and step by step. So thank you very much from myself for joining us today. Tando, I'm glad you found it informative, and please do enroll in the course. Pop in there, say hi to everybody, and go through the lessons. It's like watching Netflix. It's just absolutely so high quality. Cindy, thank you, Peter and Salil. Absolute pleasure. Jan Koketso, great session. So for myself and Salil, we'll say cheers. Have a fantastic weekend. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.